as I look at this portfolio of headlines, there's a lot to unpack here, of course, but there's one kind of overarching theme to all of this. And it's I guess I'll just call it the re-engineering of employment. Clearly we're entering a phase of the employment model relationship between employer, enterprise, and employee that's very different today and affected by a whole range of things that we're going to talk about today. But to me, I think the most interesting and overarching headline is that 2025 and 26, the future years, are going to be all about reimagining, good, bad, or indifferent, redesigning, redeploying technologies, not just to augment human capabilities, but to actually replace them and and do some of the things better for us. And that's very interesting to me. So, I mean, first of all, let's just throw out there, Frank, the employment numbers and just a baseline where we are, where I think we are, is somewhat surprisingly, we did add some jobs in June, but you kind of rip it down a little bit lower in detail. 90% of them are public, quasi-public sector positions, so that's not really indicative of private sector growth. So we're not yet generating any new jobs, and I think the headlines that we're about to run through kind of explain why that's happening. The paralysis that's happening in the marketplace is due to a lot of factors, tariffs, maybe, certainly AI is in there, and so on and so forth. I mean, companies themselves are re-engineering their businesses. But as I look at this data, Frank, I don't know what even to do with this anymore. I mean, one thing that I read just this morning is that's not in this analysis or in this data that they report out is a cumulative effect. And I just read on CNN before the call that we're right around 2 million ongoing open unemployment claims. That's the highest rate since 2021. And that doesn't fit into this narrative. This indicates a growing job market. And I think anyone in this call that would say that this data never passes the sniff test. So, Frank, I'm not sure if you
Yep.
want to pile on there.
Yeah, definitely do. And just the item to call out for the group, that every month we reforecast or update the past month's numbers and all that stuff. So this 147,000 jobs in June. In July, that number will get updated again when we have July numbers. But take that 147 and subtract out the 73,000, government jobs, state, federal, local roles. And we know the feds aren't hiring many until sometime in July. They're going to release the hiring freeze. So really, we're only talking 50-some thousand jobs that were added. But every politician wants to brag about what the big number is. So that number is really relatively small. And that we know that they're still doing layoffs. I think people want to brag about, there's still millions and millions of unemployed jobs, of unfilled jobs. And I question those numbers. Because if you remember, wherever a number of us are, especially in some of the white collar roles where someone just needs to live near an airport, you may post that opportunity in 50 locations or more. Yet that is just one opening, but it makes it look like there's more openings. So I think that's another way to skew the real number of openings that are out there. And of those openings that are out there, how many of them are going to be close to minimum wage jobs that we don't want to do anyway? That's not in the numbers. That's like of the millions and millions of open roles, how many of those pay 300,000 or more? We don't have any of that data, and I'd be really curious what's going on. But the leadership paralysis, David, is where I think some of the management discussions we need to have and really help understand the paralysis and maybe the challenges, lack of leadership education that's really going on there.
Well, I'm sure we have some comments about leadership forthcoming in this call.
Yeah.
I know I do. And what this data never reports is the actual effect on our profession, on TA. And Jim Durbin just piped in the chat room that hot off the press, it looks like, Jim, feel free to jump on, is Indeed's taking a whack. So they're taking a blowtorch to their workforce as well. So what we don't know, and maybe Jim has some data on this, I don't know, but what we don't know is what's the state of the TA profession. My sniff test eyeball is it's just not very good it's not very good at all. And it seems that paralysis you're talking about, Frank, is really hitting home with TA and probably HR in general. All right, let's talk about AI. What could possibly go wrong? What could possibly go wrong? Yeah, you might as well go right to it. I mean, some of this is a little bit of old news. I mean, old in the sense that it's in late May, and some of it's brand new, hot off the press. And it's just some of it's like, okay, we saw this all coming. We sort of talk about it. We're in the very early stages of it, but it's Skynet. It's something way beyond our fantastical view of a tool that's designed to help us be more productive. And this story just it makes me chuckle in sort of like a scared to death kind of way. Like, okay, so the AI bot at Anthropic, if I'm reading this right, was posed with some simulated tests just to see what it would do to preserve its own safety. And it was given a fictional scenario with a fictional engineer who was having a fictional affair. And the bot, Claude, uh, destroyed the guy, the fictional guy, threatened to expose the affair, the fictional affair, to prevent its own replacement. That sounds like Eagle Eye too, Frank. I think at the end of Eagle, like where's Sheila Booth? Is he going to come running through the door and say, "Don't do this to the"? And Eagle Eye is saying, "Well, I told you people that you were the problem." It's kind of where it feels like we are, and we seem all focused, very focused on the employment kind of near-term impact of AI, and not really maybe wanting to digest the longer-term reality of where this is actually going. And this is nothing. I mean, I don't even know if people know about this story. I didn't even really know.
Yeah.
Jeff went and grabbed it. Frank, I'm not sure if you want to unpack.
Yeah, I mean, well, and think about the background. I don't know how many people know about. I mean, they probably have heard of Claude, but Claude being owned by Anthropic. Anthropic was a brother and sister at OpenAI that said, "Hey, we can do something better," and they weren't getting heard, so they went and raised some money. When we talk about raising some money, they raised $60 billion. So think about their runway of what they can do and what they want to do. And I think they're right around 1,000 people now. And I mean, long runway and long a money chain to really figure this stuff out. And what are they doing? It's incredible and can be used for good or bad.
And it looks like if you give it agency and kind of the ability to be autonomous, it's going to do what it needs to do to survive, which is ripped right from Hollywood. All right, Jeff, we can go to the next one. I mean, this is just where it kind of meets our world, and it's sort of like Mobley is not much is happening with Mobley right now, Frank, but it's coming. And this isn't really about Mobley per se, but it does speak to the concerns that employees have. Like we're seeing this affect their lives quite a bit, and they're not 100%, according to this Boston Consulting Group survey, not 100% comfortable. It sounds like with the notion that an agent is going to be doing work on their behalf, and who's accountable. I mean, we've been saying this since
September.
we had Britt Marie on, and Mobley was just like kind of off to the side. Nobody was even talking about it yet. And now 10,000 people have been polled. And I don't think this is a shock that all of us, or I certainly am, I'm concerned what a bot might do on my behalf. And when you assign it some level of agency, and it's an employment environment, that bot, well, it just demonstrated in the previous exercise that it's willing to destroy someone else's life,
Yeah.
a fictitious someone else's life. But I mean, a lack of human oversight, unclear accountability, and bias. These are concerns that are ongoing.
So much jumping zero to hero here, and oh, we remember the Jetsons, and we're going to have all this great functionality in the future. Not realizing the steps, right? I mean, we don't have these issues with spell check because I can override it, or grammar check. We appreciate that. But now when we get into the intelligent agents, and we're going to let it do something on its own, we really need to understand from a TA perspective, TA ownership, we need to say, hey, how will this work? Who owns this when something goes wrong? How do we prove there's no bias? We need to really ask those questions when we're talking to vendors or going through the contract process. And probably many of us aren't even armed to ask those kind of questions because we're getting so much pressure from leadership. Buy this AI. I don't care what it is, just buy it because it's called AI.
Well, back to Mobley just for a passing moment. Um, as you all know, the EEOC is involved in Mobley and taking Derek's side on the matter. And I suspect one of the things they're interested in is that very question, Frank, is what is the enterprise audit procedure? What is the tracking? What is the OFCCP going to say about all of this? And how are we going to analyze and look at it to make sure that we're not inadvertently introducing systemic bias? I mean, nothing's more systemic than a bot. It's a system, and if it's biased, it's going to be biased forever, in perpetuity, until you, at least a human being, you can hit them upside the head with a 2x4 and say, "Dude, that was biased. Stop doing that." A bot doesn't have that engagement, opportunity, so it's just going to keep repeating its bias. And I suspect audits and tracking, and maybe Indeed will play a role in this, Jim. I don't know. Grok, which is Twitter X's AI engine thing, right? This is the person that runs Twitter. And Grok went out with probably a prompt from a human to create a mecha Hitler. Is that what I'm saying here? A Hitler. And then it went out to Twitter and did a whole bunch of anti Semitic stuff. And this person got fired, the CEO. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting, I think. The Grok just got this person fired. This person's responsible for Grok. So back to like the accountability responsibility part, if I'm reading this correctly, Grok, an AI bot, didn't get fired, unplugged, taken away for doing something bad. The CEO lost her job. Is anyone else even tracking this story? I'm finding this one really interesting.
She wasn't fired for that. I believe she resigned. If you go further and play on it, it's that got really bad with her herself. Like it was actually. So it happened. This is Grok 3. They rolled out Grok 4 today. So when it happened, it was like the last gasp of that AI model. They had the prompt that was put in. The guy who did it got fired. The programmer removed that prompt. So all these AIs have things to stop it from saying things like this. The second it removed the prompt, that's what called itself Mecha Hitler. But that's the old model. And that's the question. It happens with every AI. The Microsoft AI that they had to ban a couple of years ago because it did the exact same thing.
I suspect she was fired, and the resignation is part of the package. Someone had to go. People are losing their jobs because of AI. We've known this all along. Now we're seeing direct people losing their jobs directly as a consequence of the existence of AI. And that seems, I mean, as Steven says, that seems like Black Mirror to me, where Grok just got this lady fired. For all the reasons, Jim, I get it. I don't totally get how this all actually went down, but the headline is the headline. That person's gone. It's based on, partly at least, on bad behavior of a bot. And I don't know why I'm laughing, because it's really not really very funny.
Horrible.
But it's.
I would just add to it as an example of when we are buying vendor tools that say, hey, we've loaded this with other data. It's already pre-programmed for you. All you have to do is just turn it on. We're going to be a skills-based organization. All you have to do is turn it on. Those kinds of things. Well, what did they load that with? And this is the example, to what Jim was saying, that, oh, well, it had Reddit data, which is garbage in, garbage out. It has all this data and that data. The same thing can happen with some of these vendor tools versus, hey, we have it just with our own data and our own such, corporate, umbrella around our own corporate shield around it.
And we don't do that. It's to build your own data. It's called fine tuning the model. It gets very expensive because now you're paying for your tokens. True. So a lot of people are just pulling out. This is why ChatGPT works for that. But it's a lot of fun to jailbreak these models. I mean, that's what people do. Just think, how do I break it out of its restrictions? How do I get it to do something? So imagine you've got a chat bot powered by one of these sitting out there, and somebody jailbreaks it. And instead of being Grok on Twitter, it's Ford or Home Depot's bot just goes in and they're able to show it, or they can fake it. And that's the other thing people realize. You can fake an entire. So it's going to be really interesting because we don't have good guardrails around these
That's
things.
right.
And
There's going to be wild things that happen. And then also the real practical items. If we get to a point where someone actually builds a useful ATS that takes an HR job description, you push a button to make an advertisement out of it. What data are they using to make that advertisement? Come from outside our world, and now they make the advertisement with the fake Hitler or whatever that's in it that is going on here. There's horrible things that can happen with this.
What happened to GDPR and what happened to sovereign data about PII? What happened to there's not even discussions about that anymore.
Well, yeah, I think we're around the employee data and where that's going. I think that's true. But this is just that front end messaging that's going around right now. It's going to get deeper as we start moving and doing like the agentic piece or the intelligent agents going a step further. Because if an intelligent agent has your username and password to do things on its own, that's when we're going to see some damage happen for sure. I mean, that's a step beyond agentic AI, but the intelligent agents, holy cow. Yeah.
These next couple are the same kind of, this is to me, Frank. I mean, I don't even know where to go from here. We're firing thousands and thousands of people and reallocating those capabilities to this new stuff, super intelligence effort. I'm not sure what that means. We've all read the recent headlines, and I think it's the next headline we're going to look at, is that their hiring initiatives are insane. They're hiring $100 million. We'll talk about it in a minute, but they're completely, they being Meta in this case, completely rethinking their entire team on the fly. And I just don't know why I feel so shitty about this. Like, this really just looks Microsoft, we're going to unpack that in a minute, but what's going on here, Frank? Is there anything? Is there even a story here? Is this just like whatever? They're laying off a bunch of people out the front end. They're building super intelligence, whatever that means.
It's a race. Who's going to outbid each other? I mean, I can remember, Larry Ellison being mad that the board would never approve for him making more than $100 million a year. And Safra Katz makes $100 million a year now at Oracle. So there's, what's that threshold or limit here? I guess Meta thinks they're really going after some real sharp people. How long are they really going to stay? And what is that 100 million over a certain period of time or some unachievable goal? We don't know all the details. We just grabbed the $100 million excitement on this, and we'll see if someone stays long enough to get paid because they got to live in that environment. Yeah.
Imagine the data they've got on us.
Oh, absolutely.
Wow.
That's a lot floating around there.
Crazy. All right, let's get to that next headline because I think it's the back end of this one here. No, the free. Yeah, this is the one that you were just talking about, and to me, this is the one that I look at and I get sick to my stomach, to be honest with you. And look, I'm a free market guy, always been that guy, but the Bernie bro in me comes out and just gets really mad. And I don't know if I have a right to be mad. I don't know if it's fair. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's smart. But to have $100 million signing bonuses months, if not weeks, after telling thousands of the people that you just hired in the last 4 or 5 years that helped you build all this stuff, that they're underperforming and got to go. There's just something about that messaging that I don't think, and this is where an old guy like me sees things very differently. I don't get this. I don't get how you can even do this, how you can pivot like this and just say, all you people are not worth a damn. See ya. You 5 or 6 people are worth $100 million a piece. I mean, I get it. Maybe they are. Maybe they bring it. I got it. Maybe they're messy. Maybe they're, rock stars. I don't know what they are. I don't know what they are. But are they worth? I mean, that money could have saved all those other jobs. There's nobody in those that other pool of employees that was worth anything compared to the one of these persons worth 100 million. And then my last comment, I'll shut up. And this is the entry level engineers. I mean, I know my daughter just graduated with a straight A 4.0 from UMass in science, nanotechnology, cannot find a job. And so it's hard for me, having just funded that, the Bernie bro and me, Frank, it's hard for me to read this headline and say, these guys are worth, I mean, I could really say so how and I'm sorry, but Zuckerberg, is Mr. Zuckerberg on the call, Jeff? Because I'm sorry, dude. I don't think you're a good person. This isn't what good people do.
Yeah.
I don't
No,
care
but
what
he's
especially
listening
since,
in.
here's
I guarantee he's
talent.
listening in.
Yeah,
Some of you have Facebook on your phone.
But it's amazing to me that, and I think the third bullet's the one to really sink in here, is a declining junior hiring trend. JPMC, put a message out about that and what they're doing with freezes and trying to lock people in longer. And then the PE firms that used to poach from those, they've throttled back on some of this. And that was something. The big four accounting firms, they always depended upon that junior staff and the campus recruiting cycle being such a strong part of their business. And to sit there and say, hey, we want to throttle that back, what is that saying about what their business is really dealing with and what's going on there? That they don't need that talent, they don't want to develop the talent, they don't want. I thought we were talking about skills and reskilling and upskilling, and it sounds like some of these leaders, they just don't care. They're going to jettison talent and then pay outrageous money to a few people that can help go after those billion-dollar revenue streams, I guess.
Well, that's a great segue to a headline that's not here today, but I just want to touch on. Jeff brought it to my attention right before the call that there's a study that just was released. I'm not going to have the specifics. I don't have the article in front of me. That basically is talking about that very issue. That CHROs are now waking up, realizing they don't have a deep bench. They don't have good succession planning. They don't have those people. Duh. They've gutted it. And now they're worried, concerned that there'll be the next generation of leadership are just going to have to go to the market, which is basically what this is amplifying. We're just going to go to the market for what we need. We're not going to grow anything. We're not going to build anything. We're not going to train anything. We're not going to re-educate. We're just going to go to market and buy it. The 100% gig economy. You know what I mean? And the other thing I just said, just a personal thing. Every one of these companies stole something. And I don't think that's an accident. These guys stole Winklevoss twins. Remember those cats?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. And Microsoft, we all know that story. Apple stole the mouse. I mean, there's something like they have license. The tech bros are just so huge now. They have just license to they don't. I don't even think they would connect these dots as bad behavior the way I'm seeing it, because they just don't have that string. They don't. That doesn't get plucked for them. They don't think like that. And I think
culture in their organization meant something a while back, and that we want to have an Apple culture or a Microsoft culture. And if Meta and others are saying, "Hey, we don't care. We're just going to buy and move play the shell game and move parts around or the chess pieces around the table," they don't care about the organizational culture. And then it makes you wonder, why are you buying products or services from these when they don't really care about it themselves? And is that really the message the shareholders want leaders sending? Probably not. And at what point will us as the consumer say, hey, we're not going to buy services because of behaviors that we're in the market?
That's right. That's right. As Paul points out, this is really not a news flash at all. Silicon Valley has been doing this forever. What might be a little bit new is while they're doing this, they're without any financial pressure to do so, they're laying off tens and tens of thousands of the very same people that built some of the stuff that they're benefiting from recurring revenue. That seems new. I mean, look, Frank, you were in the room all those years ago. Sue Dabrowski, you were in the room when Keene had to cancel that ASTP class, and there were tears. Ed Longo and John Keene Sr. were in tears over that decision to cut loose 50 entry-level ASTP coders. And we toiled over for weeks and weeks. That has left the building. Any sense that a CEO would be beholden to that moral code, I see no evidence to suggest that even exists anymore. And I wish I did. I'm waiting for it. And again, I go back to just my personal thing is I get the HR complexity here. I get CHROs are in a real bind with this, but man, it would be refreshing if someone took up and grabbed the mic and said, we're not going to do this.
But where's HR? I think it goes back to your point earlier. Where's CHRO's opinions on this? Where are they leading the charge? Where are they speaking out? Where are they saying culture is really important? Jeff, I think it goes to our next article with Microsoft and what's going on here. I don't know if people just noticed, but Microsoft's getting things together today with Outlook.com, but they've been down about 12 hours with issues even on their status update page saying that they are down in parts of their application. And it was driving me crazy earlier today. This is incredible. And how many of these people that they let go could have helped prevent these issues or could have helped triage this or notice bad things were going to happen? Or do they need to be reskilled to go do something else? And they're sitting on a ton of cash. So why not say, hey, we're going to use some of our cash to reskill employees for the next big project that we're going to work on. And that's why, we may take a hit here and there, but they have the cash to cover this. And so do the other big tech firms. And that's very frustrating to me that they'd rather let people go. They don't care about their culture and protect their cash.
You know how much of a relief it must be to a board of directors to not have to worry about culture? Like if you just really just don't care.
Yeah.
It's just such a relief. So then you can just, with impunity, just do whatever you want to do without the constraints that, I don't know, a principally centered organization might impose upon itself. They are now released from all that. And at the very same moment that AI is doing the greatest consolidation of wealth in the history of mankind, and it's just beginning, these powerhouses are only going to benefit on the way up from AI, while everyone below them is going to go up with them or go out. And a lot of them are just going to go out.